Atiku and Obi slam federal government over insecurity as Shettima sells Tinubu's candidacy. And Nigeria's security not fit for purpose. 2023 polls under threat, says Africa's Security Forum chief. Well, this is Plus Politics. I am Mary Ann Cole. Presidential candidates of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar, and the Labour Party Peter Obi, at the 62nd Annual General Conference of the NBA in Lagos, flayed the federal government over the insecurity and economic crisis confronting the nation, stating that Nigeria possessed all the negative indices that qualified it as a failed state. The two candidates unanimously agreed that 2023 is Nigeria's decisive year, noting that the election is critical to the country's existence. Meanwhile, the vice presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Kashim Shettima, who represented his principal, Bola Tinubu, urged Nigerians to vote for their joint ticket because of their achievements as governors in Lagos and Borno State. Atiku did not forget to mention that Nigeria is more disunited today than it had ever been since democracy took root in 1999. And joining us to discuss this is Barrister Jide Ologun and, of course, Professor Richard Wokocha, and he's an associate professor of public law in River State University. But thank you very much, Mr. Ologun, for joining us. Mr. Ologun, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Great. Let us start by looking at the NBA's conference, which held here, which is still holding, by the way, here in Lagos at the Eco Atlantic. But let's start by looking at the platform that was accorded these presidential candidates. For many, they would say that this is a very well thought out, idea that has actually come to fruition, and many others are saying that this will set the pace for conversations such as this to be had by these presidential candidates. But first, the NBA taking this, making this move and inviting all of these presidential candidates to speak on their platform. Why do you think people say that it is timely, and of course, of what relevance is it?
For me or for?
For you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very brilliant question there. It's timely in the sense that the 2023 elections is approaching, and of course, by September, we expect that the campaigns will be jump-started, and we have quite a number of promises in the air coming from politicians. But it's now time to profile the candidates, look at their antecedents, benchmark their promises and capacity to deliver on their promises with the present state of the country. And interestingly, almost all the candidates that presented themselves during this conference have acted in one leadership capacity or the other in the country. And that makes it better for people to now look back, see how they have performed, and be able to make a decision, because it appears that the tool we have as citizens is the electoral tool. They will tell us you may not freely protest even when you are going through hardship in the nation, so you may have to wait. And as we approach the elections, it's time now to use this tool of the voting power to change the trajectory in the country. Though for some of the candidates, there is need to continue with the trajectory, and the NBA has done so well by, offering that platform to make them come and tell not just Nigerians but the world the plans they have for Nigeria. And basically, and interestingly, the unifying force of this opportunity is that all the candidates have agreed that Nigeria is not in the best of positions as we speak today, and that there is a need for urgent intervention. And one would have expected that also even if they emerge as any one of them that emerges as the president of the country must know that there's a huge assignment waiting, and that history is recording for everyone that's given the opportunity to manage this country on whether you added value to this country or you devalue this country. As we speak down in Nigeria, complain about different kinds of crises. There are countries of the world that have been elevated in terms of ranking. You talk about countries with best quality of life, you talk about the top 10, and you talk about Sweden, Norway, Switzerland, Australia, Netherlands, you talk about education, you talk about the USA, you talk about the UK, Germany, and all of them like that. And so where are we going to be positioned? And you talk about where social spending is highest in the world. You see France taking the lead with about 31.0%. You see Finland falling with about 29.1%. Belgium, Italy, Germany, Spain, Japan. So it's not as if there are no countries in the world that our leaders can learn from. So, and 2023 appears to be a season when we may need to go beyond the rhetoric promises that we have been having from these leaders and really, vote, assuming that votes will count for those who really take us out of the woods. So I think I will allow my colleague to take it from there.
All right, Professor Richard Wokocha is an associate professor of public law at the River State University. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. I just want to quickly go to what these presidential candidates represent or represented as at yesterday when they showed up at the podium of that event. For many people, it was an event that they needed to, show their face and associate themselves with. For other people, it was an opportunity for them to tell the Bar Association what they will do if they were to have an opportunity at this seat. Now, let's look at what we've had on the Buhari administration, the flagrant disobedience of laws, the picking and choosing of what laws, to be taken into consideration. Again, let's not forget the last time the NBA had a conference like this, the president was there, and we cannot forget in a hurry what the president said. That's, of course, national security superseded, the rule of law. And a lot of Nigerians did not necessarily appreciate the fact that a room full of these lawyers applauded Mr. President, for making that statement. So let's look at that as opposed to these gentlemen and what they had to say at that event. Professor Wokocha, can you hear me? I think that you're muted. Can you unmute yourself so we can hear you?
Well, first, it was a great opportunity. If you're getting me. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So first, it's a commendable effort that the NBA has made in providing a platform where Nigerians can hear these candidates and at least hear what it is they are assuring Nigerians that they are going to do. And especially do differently from how things have been done, because our current experience leaves us at a threshold where we are either at the risk of crumbling as a nation and again facing an opportunity for turning around our situation, which, to say the least, is deplorable at the moment. And so I think what NBA did is commendable, and that naturally is what should be done in a democratic environment when people are in an election year. For the events of the last conference and what it is now, you've tried to link up our experience in between with the comments of the president at some previous national conference, annual national conference of the NBA. With benefit of hindsight, one would indeed say that perhaps he was firing a shot and indicating where we were going to go, even though it is natural to say that he did not foresee where we were going to go. But I think we must hold the federal government responsible for where we are right now. For that's not where we desired to be, that's not where we voted to be, and that is not in the list where we expect this country to be in the year 2022. However, 2023 provides a fresh beginning and a fresh opportunity And I think rather than regret about all that has happened and all we have voted wrongly and all we have done wrongly, this is an opportunity for Nigerians to make amends and correct the future. There's nothing we can do about the past, but we can decide what we want to do about the future. And I think this is the high point about NBA bringing these gentlemen to the conference to tell Nigerians what they have. For it will afford Nigerians opportunity to assess their own assessment of the candidates and possibly make up their minds on where they think they need to cast their vote on election day.
Back to you, Barrister Logan. Let's talk about the candidates. Now, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has talked about the fact that one of the fundamental reforms that he would have in his policy document is to encourage the private sector as far as the development of the country is concerned, both foreign and local. He also said that it's very essential because the federal government does not have the resources to do all things that they want to do. Now, he went further to talk about devolution of powers. This is where I want to bring you in. He talked about the fact that the only way it is to make sure a conducive environment is available for local and foreign investors to participate in the development of the country, whether it is infrastructure, education, and healthcare. He said that it's for government to make sure that that environment is, secure. He said that he had an argument with a university professor from Lokoja who read his policy document and said that he wanted to return education to the states. He says that universities belong to the government, the federal government, but that he wants it to return to regional governments. In other words, states need to handle education and devolve powers. But again, I don't want to just throw this to you, sir. I just want us to also tie it back to the fact that he was a vice president under the first democratic dispensation in 1999. Did you see any of that happening under that government? And do you see him doing that or making that happen now?
Okay, let's start from the last poster you threw, which is his role as the vice president. We all know that the vice president will only carry out an assignment that the president allows him or her to carry out constitutionally. So he was likely not to have had the latitude to embark on such policy implementation. But his argument is a bit credible. He made reference to the fact that when Nigeria became a republic in 1963, after getting political independence in 1960, you saw these institutions belonging to the regions. And indeed, Nigeria was doing well under the regional government, and that is the reference we make to true federalism, where regions mobilize their resources to create commonwealth for common good. And historically, there was a season when regions were competing to be relevant and to deliver goods to the people until we started having the derailment of the regional system of government that led, eventually we had the Civil War that started from 1966 and all the way started creating states until we now have 36 states, and we have a central government that is so powerful. And talking about devolution of power, you can bring that to security. It could have been better in Nigeria today if the security architecture is owned by states rather than the federal government, where the commissioner of police, for example, in a state is not answerable to the governor of that state, irrespective of the challenges, but answerable to the Inspector General of Police, who is at the center, who quite a number of times may be looking at the body language of the president before acting. We thank God for the successes we are having now in dealing with the terrorists, because the president is eventually agreeing that the service chiefs must go all out to deal with the situation. And that is after some states are setting up their own security architecture. For example, in Benue State, the governor had to set out a voluntary guards. We know the Amotekun and others in the state. So, and this dissipates the effort of the country at the state level to focus on economic development. And let me ask this simple question. Will it make any difference if, for instance, regionally, regions are allowed to own their resources, and Zamfara State and that region can either allow smugglers to come and smuggle the gold that can earn them about $2 billion annually, or own it and use it to develop their region.
Okay.
Then the oil and gas in the south, people develop it, set up their refineries. Then you have the resources that we have around. And those who want to go into ranching, invest so much into ranching, and you all now contribute to the center. I mean, look at the United States of America. California is one of the states, and the economy of California is like the 6th largest in the world. So but having said all this, these are promises. We are talking about this present regime made promises to revive the economy, to deal with corruption, to deal with insecurity. Where are we today? Fortunately, I was in a forum today, the Nigerians of Public Relations, Citizens Summit in Abuja, where we had representatives of the federal government and top line citizens of the country discussing this integration and things like that. And one of the points is that if you go back to 1999, when we returned to this democracy, we didn't have some of these issues of Boko Haram and oil theft and everything. So we are worse rather than making progress. And these are the concerns. So, and it is point to go back to history and see how we missed it. And before I submit on this line of thought, can you imagine that today Nigeria is talking about the Trans-Niger pipeline running dry due to oil theft? Can you imagine that today Nigeria government withdrew $35.6 million from excess crude account, leaving 376,655 there? We are talking about what is the price of gas. The unemployment rate is 33.3%. The total indebtedness is about 39 trillion.
That's a whole kettle of fish on its own. That's a whole kettle of fish on its own. I mean, if we get into that conversation, that's a total conversation on its own. But I'll come back to you, Dr. Ologu. Let me go back to Professor Wokocha. Professor Wokocha, let's look at what the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, had to say in his remarks. He talked about the fact that the election will not be about tribe, religion, connection, entitlement, but it must be about competence and capacity. He also said that Nigeria needs to become a country, needs urgent transition from being a highly insecure country to a secure one, and from a disunited country to a very united country. He added that Nigeria has qualified to be a failed state. We have 2 or 3 of the biggest characteristics of a failed state. One is when you are no longer in charge of your territory. These are the words of former Governor Peter Obi. So let's look at what he had to say. Again, just to take up from where Dr. Ologun stopped. Now, Atiku is talking about devolution of powers and giving education back to the regions. And he also talks about promises. These promises are easily made, but when it comes down to bringing it into fruition, it's another case in its entirety. As we speak, sir, I know that you are of a state university, so you might not be on strike, but ASU is on strike. The education sector is in comatose. As we speak, doctors are gearing up, resident doctors are gearing up to go on strike. Resident doctors in Abia State have been on strike for a whole year. I'm wondering what the medical sector in that state looks like right now. So looking at the issues of, that you can tag a failed state with, he's also made mention of the fact that we're not in charge of our territories. And I'm asking, all of this talk that we're hearing, we heard it in 2015, we heard it in 2019, and here we are in 2022. How can we ascertain that this is not mere talk as opposed to what we will see actionable in 2023?
Well, I think we are in a state where whoever is coming in cannot just do mere talk. We are in a state in which even the president himself could be at risk. We are not in the same position as we were in 2019 and the previous years. We have never been in a state as bad as this. I'm looking for a better way to put it. We are not in control of our territories. Almost in all regions of the country, we seem to have pockets of ungoverned areas where different laws apply. And even in the rest of the country, what you should call the areas under the control of the Nigerian state, we seem to be unwilling to even protect that area. I have listened to officials, public officials, speak in this country in the last 1 or 2 years, and I can't help but come to the conclusion that, look, I am not sure it is the Constitution I know that these men are protecting and enforcing. I have heard Nigerian officials say foreigners are invading the land and killing Nigerians, and we are advised to learn to live with them. People are coming in, violating our immigration rules and murdering Nigerians in their country. And our government is asking us to learn to live with them. This section 25, 26, and 27 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria provides for who a citizen is and who is not a citizen. The Constitution appears to have been suspended. And this government is pursuing a different policy that has nothing to do with the Nigerian Constitution as to who is a Nigerian and who is not a Nigerian. We appear to have adopted officially now an extra constitutional Nigerian citizenship, where people from anywhere and citizens can suffer consequences that shouldn't even be suffered by citizens in time of war. So I think we are in a terribly bad situation where our government appears to be unwilling to govern or has decided it's not in the best interest of the country for them to govern the country. And a large part of the country is in hands other than, and authorities other than the government. Even governments at the local levels in those areas have to conform with whatever directives they are given by these elements who are not exercising authorities that are derived from the Nigerian Constitution. So I think we are not in a time that anybody can just speak grammar. Abuja is not safe. Even the president of this country has been threatened with kidnapping, including state governors. And you know what's happening from time to time in Abuja. So whoever is coming in there knows he either has to stay alive or write his will. So I do not think that we can take whatever is being said as mere talk. Of course, as to whether or not they will have the will, political will to do what they are promised, or whether or not they will think it is necessary to do what they are promised, that is left to them and our judgment of their character, which we can do by looking at their antecedents. But whether or not they can willingly decide not to do something, I am afraid we have passed that stage. And they should better not promise at all than promise and come in, because they will be compelled to do what they are promising. The situation in the country has gone beyond the normal situation where politicians can make political statements and get away with it. Their own lives should be at risk.
I have 30 seconds each for both of you. I'm going to just toss a question to you both to answer in 30 seconds because we have to go. So just as I said, there's so many things that are comatose. Within the week, a police officer was kidnapped. An inspector of police was kidnapped. His family had to pay, I think, about 700,000, if I'm not mistaken, to secure his release. Many people have been kidnapped. Let's not forget the train victims have also been kidnapped. The IGP of police recently came out to say that, he's ordering a watertight security across the nation, and public facilities, etc., etc. Mr. President has also recently talked tough that he's going to put an end to terrorism. We've heard all of this. Where do we go from here? Is there really a solution in sight? How many more people have to be killed or kidnapped or brutally dealt with before 2023? In 30 seconds, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Mr. Logan.
Lord Chief Justice Hewitt's remark that justice should not only be done, but should manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to have been done. And I want to leave this issue of governance to righteousness. If you read Proverbs 29:2, it says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. And that is the word of God. So Nigerians are yearning for righteousness in this land. This country is overblessed, and we need resourceful and righteous engagement of our resources to create commonwealth for common good. And when we allow that, definitely this crisis we have will diminish. Right. So we need righteousness in the land.
All right.
God bless Nigeria.
Professor Wokocha, finally.
Well, first and finally, I think we must begin to.
Oh, Professor Wakacha, I think that you're frozen there. Can you hear me? Apologies, I think that we lost that connection with Professor Richard Wakacha. Professor Richard Wakacha is an associate professor with the Public Law Department in River State University, and Jide Ologun is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being part of this conversation.
Thank you. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we're still talking in that regard of insecurity. We'll be talking about 2023 elections and, of course, the insecurity that persists. Stay with us.